Hey, what's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Maskill, where we focus on helping guide you to have a prosperous blue collar business. Today, we have with us Ryan Wyatt. Ryan is the co founder of Titan Wizards, a company that bridges the gap between the hard work of the trades and the cutting edge capabilities of technology. His unique blend of hands on experience and tech expertise makes him a game changer for home service businesses looking to maximize their potential with ServiceTitan. Ryan spent years in the trenches working in shops owned by ServiceTitan's Tom Howard, as well as time at ServiceTitan as an enterprise project manager and project engineer, where he mastered the platform's ins and outs. So that is Ryan Wyatt. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here. What's going on today?
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me on board. I'm excited to be here. So we've got lots of things going on right over here at Titan Wizards, and thank you so much for that intro. The main thing that I focus on is helping these home service companies squeeze every last drop out of a rather expensive piece of software on ServiceTitan. And so my background, like you were saying, I ran two shops for Tom Howard, both Lee's Air and Dustin Pest Control. And then at my time at ServiceTitan, kind of learning the ins and outs of how all that works. And when I was separating from ServiceTitan, there was such a huge need for this, right? Because it is complicated, and if you don't have it set up right, you're probably leaving a lot of value on the table. And I mean, that's really just going to be a killer for a lot of these smaller companies. And from what some of the bigger influencers are, like Tommy Mello, right? He's famous for saying Service Titan's like a Ferrari, but you can't get it out of first gear, right? Well, that's what a company like Titan Wizards does, right? We get you all the way into sixth gear, so you're flying down the highway towards your goals.
Love it. And it is, as a previous ServiceTitan user with my previous electrical company, I mean, it's a monster and it's so powerful. To me, I think the biggest frustrations that I ran into, and probably all of your clients run into, is one, the support is, not the best. Because they've just, I mean, it's such a behemoth and there's so many, so many people using it that it's hard to get individualized support of like, hey, this is what my company does and this is how I want to be able to use this.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't have the bandwidth. And that's nothing against them. They've built an amazing platform. To me, the biggest frustration though is like there's so many features that I learned about in like Facebook groups that I didn't even know existed because they don't even tell you about them until someone says, "Hey, did you know you could do this?" And I'm like, "How do we do that?" And like, "Oh, you got to email ServiceTitan and they'll turn it on for you." So that's
Exactly.
where somebody like you comes in. So through your experience as a user, as an employee with ServiceTitan, why is ServiceTitan so hard to implement for, your average company in the trades?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's because, okay, so as a senior onboarder, right? Like I had really big customers. Like the biggest was 90 million. I mean, even the smallest was like 10 million. So the problem lies in how every single home service company operates differently, and they have all these different processes that they want to somehow um, duplicate from their old system into ServiceTitan, right? So um, there's a lot of backend configurations like you were talking about, and to be honest, those aren't even very well documented. At least not when I was there. Like there is a gigantic list that we can see on the back end, but they all have their own contingencies. So like if we flip this one on, it may break this other one that you have, and so they don't push that to the forefront for customers to kind of cherry pick like a menu, right? It's kind of on a case by case basis to solve very specific problems that a company is having. And so to make a piece of software like ServiceTitan that can adapt to all these different companies in just one vertical, right? Then you've got all these other verticals that have all these other different needs, right? So you have to build in a lot of play to be able to go in any direction inside of this software. And the support, going back to what you said, I mean, I'm not going to knock the support because they've helped me out a lot, but I do understand I've had my own issues as well using support. And the problem lies in, how is any one person supposed to understand every single vertical and every single business process, right? It just comes with time. It comes with time and experience. There's no other way around it. And that's where, Titan Wizards really comes in, right? Because I've had customers in all kinds of different verticals, whether it be pest control, locksmithing, cleaning, HVAC, plumbing, of course, right? But you name it. And that is, I have to learn each type of industry each time, right? And how would that even fit inside of ServiceTitan? So there's so much that goes onto it, which why it can be so complicated. If you're just going to do the simplest, HVAC, for example, right? HVAC plays very nicely into ServiceTitan. And what I also recommend is, if you can tailor your business processes to ServiceTitan's already best processes, it's going to go so much smoother. It's kind of like the salmon, right? Are you going to be the salmon that's always fighting the current, right? Because you insist on doing a specific process that's kind of counterintuitive to how ServiceTitan would do it? Or if you can pivot, maybe you can finally swim with the current. It can be so much smoother and easier, and cut down on some of your pain points.
Yeah, and I mean, coming from somebody that, I used Jobber for a long time. Like, all right, we got to switch to ServiceTitan. At first, it's like, oh my God, this is so annoying, because something like a Jobber, which is great, phenomenal, Jobber's like, this is how we operate no matter what type of business. There really is no customization.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start to figure out how to customize, or you have someone like Ryan help you do that, it's like, oh my God, like we couldn't live without ServiceTitan once you get it set up for your business. And to your point, there's a reason they have best practices, and there's a reason people pay for ServiceTitan, because like, hey, they've already figured it out. And you don't need to be that Sam saying, well, we've already always done it this way. We always got to keep doing it this way, when it's like, but have you thought about doing it this way? And then eventually like, oh my God, this is so much easier. So, I mean, it's the Ferrari. Once you start to figure out how to drive it, how to control it, how to steer it, I don't know how people run their business without it, to be honest. But with that being said, in your experience, what are some of the things, people out there listening, some of the ways that you see, most businesses not using, or some of the features that people aren't using that they should be using? Like, what are some things that, the average company probably isn't taking advantage of with ServiceTitan?
Ooh, okay. So there's always room for improvement from what I've seen. Every single account I've ever gone into, I've I've always seen areas where they can get more value out of ServiceTitan. So the number one that I always start with, no matter what, is going to be the price book, right? And even when I was at ServiceTitan, the what we would say is like, this is the backbone of the account, right? Everything is tied to this. All of your costs, all of your revenue, I mean, all of your purchasing and inventory, literally everything, your performance pay, if you do performance pay, which I recommend, it's all tied to the price book. And I feel like most companies, they have they're maybe utilizing 20% of what the price book could do. Like, they may not have linked materials, linked equipment, right? Like, just kind of simple stuff. Do you have proposal templates where a selling tech can say, here's your option A, B, and C, just at a snap right here, and be able to offer that to the customer, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do with the price book. So I would start there first, right? Because that can really affect the top line and the bottom line as well. The next one would be memberships. I feel like a lot of companies don't have their memberships dialed in. Some do. I have seen a couple where they did have it dialed in. But in general, there's opportunities there, right? A lot of times they don't even offer a monthly payment program. They've always done 1 year at a time, and every single year they have to call the customer to have them actually renew instead of making it ongoing. And so you kind of you have the potential of losing that customer and that recurring revenue with that. Let's see, so memberships, price book. I think that reports also are something that a lot of companies are not taking full advantage of. There's several reasons for this. One could be that their data isn't any good, right? It could be that they have some kind of process or multiple processes that aren't getting good data in, right? Maybe your sold threshold is $1, but you have a dispatch fee. And so it looks like everybody's converting everything, right? When you don't really know like who's performing what, right? That's just one tiny example of making sure that the data is good. And then once you know that the data is good and the processes are good, then you can have actual reports that would matter, right? And then of course you got the reports that those would feed into a dashboard. And then, you know, as an owner and operator, you can just take a look at the dashboard and see the metrics of the company.
Yeah. And as a fractional CFO, that's why I love ServiceTitan too, is the reports, the data you can get if you're putting good data in, and that, you know, the sold threshold is one of the biggest things I see when we're with clients. Like, well, we need to increase average ticket, or we need to increase our close rate. And then we go to look at it, and it's like, well, it says they're closing at like 90%.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, ServiceTitan basically has a sold threshold that you can set where only invoices or tickets or whatever you want to call it, estimates that are above that dollar amount count as a conversion for your technician. So if your dispatch fee is $79 and you have your sold threshold set at $1, that means anytime they get an approval over $1, they consider it a conversion, where really your dispatch fee was sold by your CSR, whoever took the call, and that service tech shouldn't get credit for just selling the dispatch fee, gets a zero. But in ServiceTitan's eyes, you know, when it's set up properly, it's like, oh, they turned that into a conversion and they crushed that opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's where I get frustrated most, being a data person. It's like, well, let's look at your dashboard and let's look at how people are performing to see why we're not hitting our revenue or why our cost of goods sold isn't where it needs to be.
You know,
And it's not set up properly.
yeah, another thing is going to be the marketing and revenue attribution as well. I think a lot of companies are leaving that on the table. Like maybe they've got one or two phone numbers, you know, that they've been tracking forever, right? It's the same truck that's on the vans, the same one that's going to be on their website, right? But in order to I'm sorry, to track where you're spending, right? You really need to be able to attribute every dollar that you spend and measure what kind of revenue that brought in, right? And so the nice thing about ServiceTitan is you can generate a limited amount of tracking numbers. And it could be, you have a different number on, like, say, your chip clips, right? Like that was one thing that we did at Lee's Air, was chip clips. And they sold really, we got a lot of revenue from chip clips, but we would have never known that if we hadn't had a very specific number on that one piece of swag that we were giving away, right? So having that kind of level of sophistication in all your marketing is going to be critical. Otherwise, you're just doing kind of like a spray and pray, you know, like, I hope something works with this, you know, but in the meantime, you spent, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 on marketing and no real way to track any of it.
Yeah. And that's a huge thing, because I think a lot of times too, even the clients that I talk with, it's like, well, I don't know how to set up all the tracking numbers. Like ServiceTitan actually makes that super easy. Like go in, select it, tell them what campaign this is for, and boom, it's done. And you can start putting on everything it forwards to you. I have just a curiosity question of how you would track this, because I know everyone has their own opinions. So say you send chip clips to all of your existing customers, people who have spent money before, and they call that phone number. Do you have your CSRs keep it as that phone number, or do you have them switch it to something that says like existing customer? And there is no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious of how you recommend your clients set that up when existing customers call tracking numbers.
Okay, if they're an existing customer and they're calling like our old legacy number, I would probably just keep it as that, because what my opinion on that is that they probably have it stored in their phone, right? But the chip, going back to what you're saying, is like if they call the chip clip number and then they book a job, I would leave it as the chip clip, because think about what's really happening here, right? Like, I haven't worked for Lee's Air in almost 4 years, right? But I still have a Lee's Air chip clip because it has a strong magnet on my fridge. So every time that I go and open that fridge, I see that. And just subconsciously, it's kind of like embedding it in my brain that I would call Lee's Air every single time. So if I called that number, or if a customer did the exact same thing and called my number, right, I would want to know that that was kind of like the branding / phone number that was attributing that call.
Love it. Yeah, and that's how I feel as well. So we can track all of the different ways we're communicating to our existing customers, new customers, all that. But
Mm-hmm.
I do know a lot of people, even if they get a postcard and they're a brand new customer, they'll be like, well, my neighbor, I've actually heard about you from my neighbor, which is why they got a postcard probably,
Mm-hmm.
but then they'll just change it to like referral. And we don't really know what that means or what number they called and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's super helpful. So for those of you that don't know what we're talking about as well, with ServiceTitan, when your CSR is booking a call, they can override what, the source of that phone call. And they could
Yes.
just, whatever your dropdown is, and they can select it versus if you let it come in based on how it came in of chip clip number or postcard number or yard sign number or all the different,
Yeah.
campaigns that you guys have out there. So other things with ServiceTitan, what are some things that I know we've talked about price book and membership and reports and things like people probably just aren't utilizing, but like what are some of the biggest maybe mistakes you see people making where when you come in, you're like, guys, we got to undo all of this stuff in order to get this thing optimized. What are some of the biggest mistakes, whether it's on the dispatch board, call booking, anything and everything? What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making with ServiceTitan?
Oh, that's a tough question because there could be a lot of things, but one of the biggest ones that I see is making sure that the accounting software of choice is kept up to date with what's in ServiceTitan. I can't tell you how many times I've gone on to the accounting tab and there are invoices and payments and all kinds of things that have been stacked up for months. And I'm like, are these in your accounting software? Well, we're not sure. Or, yes, but we have an accountant that does that manually on a monthly basis or whatever it is, right? So, like, that normally takes a lot of cleanup, right? I love the new touchless journal entry feature as well. I've gotten that set up for a couple of clients right now, and it's set it and forget it. I mean, it's really a smooth feature, but a lot of times that requires a lot of cleanup, and it also requires some training, some retraining, kind of going back to what you were saying of like, hey, we got to kind of undo some of this stuff. There could be a lot of export errors as well that nobody really understood. So they didn't know how to actually resolve those issues. That could be a big reason why that stuff never made it over to, I'll just say QuickBooks or whatever. There could be old processes as well in the field as well. There could be broken forms or forms that maybe don't force technicians to gather correct information. So maybe the forms need to be reimagined, or there needs to be some retraining for the techs on how they do the forms. There's probably a lot of work that needs to be done in estimate creation as well. I think that proposal, for those of you that don't know, a proposal is basically just a set of estimates, right? So I could give you my 4-ton package unit proposal, right? And already pre-built in there would be kind of like our base model, and then like a mid-tier model, and then our top of the end model, right? If you already pre-built those selections, imagine how much easier it is for a tech to just go, okay, they have a 4-ton package unit up on the roof. I'm going to select that proposal, and then I'm going to, obviously give that to them. Instead of them having to sit in the truck and then manually put all that stuff together, you're going to be expediting the process, making it faster for the homeowner. It looks more professional, and then it's going to capture all the costs much better, right? Because what could happen is, oh, I forgot to add, a whip, or I forgot to add a whatever piece into this, right? It would throw off the cost, it would throw off the profitability. And so making sure that those things are kind of dialed in, I think kind of puts you on autopilot to be able to sell higher ticket items as well. It makes it a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, I mean, sitting in my seat, those those are really two issues I see a lot, especially the accounting and exporting it to QuickBooks. If anybody listening to this, if your accountant or bookkeeper says, we don't want to push those invoices over to QuickBooks or Xero, wherever, get yourself a new bookkeeper, because nothing drives me more crazy than they're just classifying these deposits that came in from ServiceTitan payment processing, and we don't have any details in the accounting software. And if you ever want to sell your business, you're going to want to have all that pushed over there. So we know what the receivables are. We know you can really tie all your purchase. You can do so many things with it, but even just on a base invoice level, you will not have any details in your QuickBooks if your bookkeeper says, no, 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 we don't want to plug in ServiceTitan QuickBooks. I'm telling you, the only reason they don't want to do that is because they don't want to do the work of matching up invoices to deposits in QuickBooks. And I think ServiceTitan does it better than most, because ServiceTitan doesn't take out their credit card processing fees until the end of the month. So you don't even have to figure out, oh, what was the credit card processing fee on this? Literally, you just go in, oh, this is this batch, boom, 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 done. It takes, and they're updating all the time and making it more automated. But if your bookkeeper tells you they don't want to hook up, I would run away very, very fast. And then the other thing you mentioned with estimates and invoices, I see a lot of companies where they don't have the processes or accountability in place, and their technicians don't even put together an estimate. It's like, oh, that's what you want, and they just add it to the invoice. So now we don't even know what was offered. We don't even know what conversations were had, and we don't have any data on, did they sell it? Did they not sell it? It's just like, oh, there's an invoice there. There was no actual accepted proposal or anything. So two huge things that I would agree as well as a numbers person. So thanks for sharing that, Ryan. So getting to the end of this conversation, what have we missed? What are things we need to do to ensure we maximize the ROI on ServiceTitan? Like, what are the things we haven't talked about that you think everybody should hear?
I think that it's super important to invest in your knowledge, right? Because you've already kind of taken the plunge and invested in a highly sophisticated program, right? But if you're not educating yourself and your team on how to properly use it, it's too complex. It's going to go to waste, right? Like if I only know how to use a hammer, and then you hand me like some kind of piece of hydraulic equipment, it's not going to make a difference to me. It's not going to add any extra value to me. The onus would be on me to put in the work to understand that. So going back to kind of what you said in the beginning, that part is very difficult, right? We're dealing with owners that have too many hats. They're putting out too many fires. Like they are in the grind, putting out the fires of their business. And how are they going to find that time? And also it's hard if you don't have a coach to teach you how to do it. This is what this particular number means. This is what this report means. This is the process that is breaking down, and this is the way that it should work, right? If you don't have that, like if you don't have kind of like a lighthouse when you're out in the ocean at night and there's a storm and everything's going crazy, then you're not even going to know which direction to go in. You're just not. And so that's why it's so important that you invest in not only yourself, but your team as well, right? The more people that are ServiceTitan savvy, I'll say, the better your company is going to run, because it will create efficiencies instead of inefficiencies.
Love it. Well said, Ryan Wyatt. Thanks again for coming to the show, sharing your journey, and providing a ton of insight, wisdom, and actionable advice for all the blue collar business out there, especially those that are using ServiceTitan as we continue our journey to prosperity. But before we sign off, Ryan, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you and learn more about how you operate and if they're interested in working with you?
Yes, go to my website, www.titanwizards.com. You can read about the company. You can book a free consultation with me. And then we're starting to get onto like more social media as well, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. You can always connect with us there as well.
Awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. Everyone out there, titanwizards.com, go there. And they do put out a lot of great content, and Ryan's wife does as well. Tippy Wyatt, she's all over LinkedIn. Y'all are crushing. Ryan, thanks again for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much, Paul.